Derek Blackwood gave up 10 years of his life to a dark system so he could steal my invention, the Sentinel system. He thought victory was his. He believed he could take my work, my reputation, and my entire existence, just like he did before. But what he didn't know was simple. I had returned from death itself, and I'd already hidden traps inside every line of code he stole. If he wanted to gamble with his life, I would make sure he lost everything. Marcus, our parents said something important. If you list Derek's name as the main creator on the paperwork, they'll finally let you legally change your last name to Blackwood. We were sitting in the living room of our Riverside mansion. My sister Victoria slid a folder across the dark wooden table with a smug expression. I stared at the document. It looked like a promotion, but it was really a trap. A death sentence disguised as an opportunity. I was back. Time had pulled me backward to this exact moment. The day Derek made his terrible deal with that shadow entity. I forced myself to breathe normally and pushed the folder away. Not yet. I made my voice sound cold and professional. Derek isn't ready. He needs to learn the current system first. I should walk him through everything and let him work with the development team for a few days. Those things aren't connected, Marcus. Victoria's eyes became narrow and sharp. I changed direction quickly. The Blackwood name is being watched closely by the SEC right now. We shouldn't create rumors about favoritism. It's better if Derek proves himself as a genius first. Then nobody can question us. I turned to look at Derek, who stood by the window playing the part of a humble, misunderstood foster brother perfectly. He looked surprised for a moment. Then I saw victory flash across his face. He got exactly what he wanted. Access to everything. Listen, I don't want to cause problems. Derek's voice dripped with fake humility. Marcus is right, Victoria. If I can't prove my value, it'll damage the family's reputation. Besides, everyone thinks I'm supposed to be brilliant. I can't disappoint the company. I suppose that makes sense. Victoria nodded slowly. Derek is always so selfless, Marcus. You should learn from his dedication to this family. She reached out and messed up Derek's hair affectionately. Watching this golden boy and his supporter perform this act made my skin crawl. In my previous life, signing that document started my destruction. After the Blackwoods rescued me from the foster care system, I turned down an important research position at a government agency just to prove my loyalty. I created the Sentinel system, a quantum encryption shield that could have protected the nation's digital security for 50 years. Victoria manipulated me with promises. She said I'd become a true Blackwood if I shared credit with Derek. I believed her lies. It was all a trap. On the day of a major national cybersecurity conference, I discovered my local computer environment was completely destroyed. All my data had become meaningless garbage. The presentation was starting in minutes, and I was panicking. I ran to find Derek, hoping he had the backup drive. Instead, I heard them whispering behind a door. Derek, is this system of yours real? You really traded 10 years of your life to swap Marcus's work for yours? If this information leaks out, the Blackwoods are finished. Relax, Victoria. Derek answered calmly. The system uses forces they can't understand. Everything is rewritten. Even the timestamps on the server will show I finished it a week before he did. I burst into the room demanding answers, but they looked at me like I was insane. When I tried to show a recording to the judges, they treated it like I was having a mental breakdown. Trading life for code. Marcus, do you hear yourself? This isn't science fiction. That's what the lead architect told me. Even when they checked the laboratory's local records, the timestamp showed Derek had committed the core programming 5 days before I did. The real genius versus fake genius debate spread across social media for weeks. Because of my reputation, some people defended me, especially my assistant and girlfriend, Emma Morrison. With her family's legal support, I sued Derek. But Derek, backed by that shadow technology, sacrificed another year of his life to create false evidence. Evidence that claimed I had sold the technology to a foreign country. I was labeled a traitor. I went to federal prison while Derek was celebrated as a national hero. The day he received the Presidential Medal of Technology, he visited my cell. How does it feel to lose everything, Marcus? This is your punishment for trying to compete with me for the Blackwood inheritance. Then, to break me completely, he leaned closer. By the way, stop waiting for Emma. She died in a tragic apartment fire last night. Nobody is left to save you now. Something snapped inside me. I killed him with a sharpened toothbrush before the guards could stop me. I was sentenced to death. As the first injection entered my arm, I felt burning rage and then darkness consumed me. Now I was back, and I planned to send every single one of them straight to hell. I hope you're a man of your word. Victoria's voice carried a warning. If you try any tricks, you'll be living on the street before dinner. She led Derek out of the room. Both wore expressions of smug victory. I sat on the couch, mentally organizing the situation. Derek's system was powerful, but it had a weakness. It needed a physical object to work through, a medium, and it required some form of agreement or confirmation from the victim. In my previous life, that signed document was my confirmation. Later, I lost my vintage signature ring, a gift from my old mentor at the orphanage. Derek had stolen it. I decided to play along with their scheme. I would give them the medium they needed, but I'd poison it with something they wouldn't detect until too late. I had to pretend to be their victim. I left the mansion and drove to my laboratory. I hesitated at the door. Emma was inside. In my last life, I never got to give her the life I promised. I remembered when she, the daughter of the Morrison shipping empire, asked me out in front of the entire campus. I'm just a kid from the foster system, I told her then. Why would you want me? Because I like who you are, she had said with a laugh. I had been foolish back then. I thought talent was enough. Even when Emma warned me about the Blackwood family's reputation for being ruthless, I didn't listen. I was too drunk on the dream of having a real family. I stepped into the laboratory. Emma was there, carefully preparing the afternoon's data sets. She didn't hear me enter. I felt guilt so strong it almost choked me. I walked up behind her and pulled her into a hug. She gasped with surprise, then relaxed when she realized it was me. She playfully hit my chest. Marcus, you scared me. Say something next time. I'm sorry. The words barely came out. She pulled back, her eyes searching mine. Marcus, what happened? Did they do something to you again? Her voice became sharp. We should just leave. They've been blocking your funding for months, and now that the Sentinel system actually works, they want to put Derek's name on it. I swear, I wonder if you're even their biological son. I took a deep breath and stroked her hair. They want me to give Derek half the credit. What? Emma's face flushed with anger. The Blackwoods have no shame. If you give them an inch, they'll take everything. Don't be stupid, Marcus. I know, I whispered, leaning closer. That's why I need you to help me find a secret backup laboratory somewhere off the grid. A ghost lab. Exactly. The project is complete. I need you to register a new company for the Sentinel system. Do it quickly. Use your family's lawyers and get the funding secured. Keep everything silent. In this timeline, the Morrison family was still powerful. Unlike my last life, where the Blackwoods destroyed them after Derek's breakthrough. Are you sure about this? She asked carefully. Trust me, I said, kissing her forehead. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing it for us. I squeezed her cheek gently. They want to destroy me completely, Emma. If I don't move now, they'll destroy us both. Fine, she said, swatting my hand away with a smile. I'm glad you finally woke up. I'll call my father right now. Wait, I added. I need your father to investigate something else for me. Something private. We separated. She went to secure the new facility, and I took an encrypted drive containing the core programming to a specialized antique shop in the city. If I was going to fight supernatural technology, I needed different insurance. I returned to the Blackwood mansion later that evening. The atmosphere was heavy. My father, Richard Blackwood, sat in the study looking like someone had stolen $1 billion from him. My mother, Catherine, sat across from him with a calm, practiced smile. I knew better now. Catherine was the coldest of them all. She hated me most and orchestrated my downfall with surgical precision. As I stood in the entrance hall, Catherine rose with graceful movements. Marcus, you're back. Don't just stand there. Go wash up for dinner. We've all been waiting for you. Sure, I said, playing the obedient son. I realized now that her comment about waiting wasn't kindness. It was a jab to make Richard and Victoria resent me for delaying their meal. I used to feel grateful for her mediation. Now I knew she was just preparing the knives. At the dinner table, I stayed silent, eating quickly and quietly. Look at him. Victoria sneered with disgust in her eyes. Eating like he's never seen a steak before. Slow down, Marcus. You're making a scene. I ignored her. I needed the energy, but Derek couldn't resist joining in. Victoria, leave him alone. Derek said softly. He's been in the laboratory all day. It's natural to be hungry. Working on what? Victoria snapped. Probably just staring at walls in that dusty basement. I chewed my steak calmly. If I was just staring at walls, where did the Sentinel system come from? I finished, set my fork down and stood up. I'm finished. I'll head upstairs. Sit down. Richard slammed his hand on the table. Your elders are still eating. Where's your respect? You have no manners. Richard, honey, take it easy. Catherine interrupted smoothly. He's probably just tired. He wants rest. Richard scoffed loudly. Tired? We're all tired. I run a Fortune 500 company, and he acts like he's the only one doing anything. He can't even handle a simple request to help his brother. I looked down, pretending to be submissive and ashamed. Inside, I was laughing. They were trying to break my spirit with a loyalty test to see if I'd still obey like a dog. Dad, don't be angry at Marcus. Derek said, standing up and fidgeting with his napkin. It's my fault. I'm the one who's behind schedule. Maybe we should forget the conference. I'll wait for the next one. This innocent little brother act made my stomach turn. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the encrypted drive. I brought the drive, I said, cutting him off. I'm going to explain everything to Derek tonight. Tomorrow I'll take him to the laboratory and introduce him as the lead architect. That's more like it. Victoria said, leaning back in her chair. Good boy. Maybe you're finally learning. Richard, tell him about the car. Richard grunted. There's an old BMW sedan in the back of the garage. It's 10 years old, but it runs. It's yours now. 10 years old. The Blackwoods were worth billions, and they were tossing me a piece of junk as a reward for the most valuable cybersecurity technology in history. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Victoria, I said with forced gratitude. I'll do my best for Derek. I led Derek to the library. This room had been forbidden to me in my first life. Even servants were allowed inside, but I was told I'd lose something important if I entered. Victoria followed us like a prison guard, terrified I might trick her precious brother. It didn't matter that she understood nothing about quantum physics. She just wanted to watch. Derek was supposedly a genius, but that was a lie bought with Blackwood money. He'd paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for ghostwritten academic papers. He was a theoretical fraud. When it came to actual implementation, he was useless. I explained the code to him with half-truths mixed with complex, unnecessary logic. I intentionally overcomplicated the mathematics, making sure he couldn't see the trap I was building. Derek nodded along, pretending to understand. It was pathetic. Late into the night, I woke them both up. They had fallen asleep over the blueprints. Wake up. That's enough for tonight. This should be enough to convince the team tomorrow. Wait, I fell asleep. Derek blinked, wiping drool from his chin. It's dry material, I said. Anyone would be bored. Did you leave anything out, Marcus? Victoria asked suspiciously. You're not trying to embarrass him, are you? I handed her the drive. Here, keep it. He can review it whenever he wants. Derek pulled back like the drive was burning hot. No, Marcus, you keep it. I trust your explanation. He shot a glance at Victoria. Victoria, it's late. Let's get some sleep. Fine, she said. Let's go. I watched them leave with a cold smile forming. They were lying. They were going to perform the ritual tonight. They only made me teach Derek so he wouldn't look completely stupid when experts questioned him later. I went to my room, changed into running clothes, and left the house pretending to go for a night run. I left the drive, my signature ring, and an old fountain pen on my desk. Bait in a trap. I found a hidden spot in the garden, pulled out my phone, and opened the feed for the hidden cameras I'd installed. Sure enough, a shadow crept into my room. Victoria, he's gone. Good. We don't need to use the spray this time. I realized then that in my last life, they hadn't just relied on my trust. They had drugged me to make sure I slept through the ritual. They looked at the items on my desk. Look at this. Derek whispered. He even left his precious ring. He's so pathetic. Derek, are you sure this works? Trust me, Victoria. This is how I got the blueprints for the Hartley merger. Nobody ever found out. My eyes widened. So that's how the Hartley family was ruined. Derek had used the system to steal their trade secrets. That was another crime to add to his list. Derek ignored the pen and picked up the signature ring. I grinned. The ring was perfect. The poison was ready. In my last life, during the weeks before my execution, I shared a cell with a strange old man. He looked at me with intense eyes that made me uncomfortable. Kid, he said, do you want to learn a trick? A way to change the tracks of your life? I had nothing to lose. I said yes. He touched my forehead and I blacked out. I woke up on the day of my execution, but my mind was filled with symbols, special markings, and knowledge of the unseen world. The old man called it applied metaphysics. To me, a quantum physicist, it looked like a way to manipulate probability fields through focused intention. Derek was about to learn that you don't play with probability unless you understand the mathematics. Victoria, stand back. Derek whispered. Don't make a sound. Victoria nodded, her usual arrogance replaced by visible fear. Derek closed his eyes. A dark, flickering shadow appeared in the center of the room. It wasn't a system like in a video game. It was a void, a presence that felt like static electricity on skin, even through a screen. The entity spoke in a voice like grinding metal. User, state your exchange. Derek's face twisted with greed. I offer 10 years of my life. In exchange, I want every achievement and complete technology from the owner of this ring for the Sentinel system. Scanning. A crimson beam shot out from the void, scanning the signature ring. Victoria covered her mouth to keep from screaming. Target identified. Marcus Vance. Current achievement confirmed. The Sentinel system. Binding to medium. Once the contract is signed, the process is irreversible. Do you wish to proceed? Proceed. Derek shouted. The ring floated into the air, glowing with a sickly, distorted red light. After a few seconds, the light faded and the ring dropped back onto the desk. Contract established. 5 years of life force collected as deposit. The remainder will be taken upon completion of the transfer. I watched Derek's face carefully. He looked slightly more mature, perhaps a bit more tired, but the loss of 5 years wasn't immediately obvious on a 28-year-old man. I pulled a paper marking from my pocket and touched it with a lighter. It burned without producing smoke. The trap was set. In the world of quantum field theory, everything is connected. If he wanted to link his life with my work, I'd make sure he linked it with the decay I'd hidden in the code. On the screen, the shadow vanished. Derek, are you okay? Victoria rushed to him. I'm fine, he smirked. It just takes the years. It doesn't hurt. Good. Victoria breathed with relief. She stepped closer, her face flushed. Do you want to come to my room tonight? I froze. My hand hovered over the off button. I watched as Derek wrapped an arm around her waist with a predatory expression. Of course, Victoria. I shut the phone off. I had seen enough. The Blackwoods weren't just a family of thieves. They were a pit of snakes. A greedy father, a cold-blooded mother, a parasitic brother, and a twisted sister. Well, their time was running out. The Global Cybersecurity Conference would be their funeral. The day of the competition arrived. I walked into the convention center holding Emma's hand. While we waited in the VIP lounge, I leaned back on the couch, resting my head in her lap. I was exhausted. Between setting up the ghost laboratory and dealing with Derek's constant questions, I'd barely slept. I had helped Derek by officially signing over the original laboratory to him. His system had transferred the results, giving him a perfect copy of the Sentinel system, but his copy was a time bomb. I had spent the last week making his life miserable under the disguise of tutoring. I gave him the mathematics in fragments, out of order, making sure he had no logical foundation to understand anything. He looked terrible. The 10-year sacrifice was starting to show. His skin was pale and faint wrinkles were appearing around his eyes. The Blackwoods, believing I was now useless, had kicked me out of the mansion the night before. I didn't hold back. I let them have it. I announced I was starting my own company and told them I was finished with them. Marcus, don't think you're special. Victoria had spat with venom. You're nothing without the Blackwood name. You're not even a shadow of Derek. Marcus, honey. Catherine had said, her voice a fake cry. Don't do this. Kneel down and apologize to your father and we'll forget this ever happened. You ungrateful brat. Richard had roared. If you walk out that door, you're dead to this family. I didn't answer with words. I walked up to Derek, who was trying to look smug, and I slapped him so hard his head snapped back. The room went completely silent. You started. Victoria began to shout. I didn't let her finish. I grabbed Derek by the collar and landed 10 more punches, one for every year of my life he'd stolen in the other timeline. I stopped when my knuckles were sore and Derek's face was a swollen mess. I picked up my bags and walked out. Now at the conference, the Blackwoods were across the room glaring at me. Marcus, you have some nerve showing your face here. Victoria marched over with Derek trailing behind her, his face bruised and bandaged. I didn't even look up. I just stood, walked over to Derek, and slapped him again hard. Derek! Victoria shrieked, catching him. What is wrong with you? Why do you keep hitting him? We're related by blood, Victoria, I said calmly. Hitting my sister in public would look bad for the family reputation. So I hit the foster kid instead. It's a compromise. Say one more word and I hit him again. Try me. You. Slap. Marcus, stop. Slap. Victoria, please shut up. Derek wheezed, clutching his jaw. My face just stopped hurting. Victoria turned bright red, her chest heaving with anger, but she went silent. An official walked into the lounge. Mr. Blackwood, Mr. Vance, you're up next. Please move to the stage. Let's go, I said to Emma. The conference was being live-streamed to millions of viewers. It was the gold standard for transparency. Each contestant would present their work, then face a live stress test from professional hackers. Derek was ahead of me in the rotation. When he announced the Sentinel system, the judges, some of the most respected names in the field, were visibly stunned. A perfect defense against any known cyber intrusion method. Derek basked in the applause. He shot me a triumphant look. I just clapped along, smiling. Go ahead, Derek. Climb higher. The fall is much longer that way. The judges signaled for the stress test. 20 elite hackers from the National Security Agency were ready to assault Derek's system. Just as they were about to begin, Derek held up a hand. Wait, I have something to say first. Yes. Dr. Arthur Milton, my old mentor and the lead judge, leaned forward. What is it, Derek? Derek's hand trembled slightly, but he spoke with fake conviction. I've spent years researching the intersection of quantum states and encryption technology, but some people have no ethics. They use proximity and trust to steal the work of others. He pointed a shaking finger at me. That person is Marcus Vance. He stole my research. I acted the part perfectly. I looked shocked, confused, and hurt. Beside me, Emma rolled her eyes and gave my side a sharp pinch. The crowd erupted with noise. Marcus Vance stole it. I don't buy it, someone whispered. He's a legend in the graduate program. I don't know. Another voice countered. He never finished his doctorate. He just disappeared into the Blackwood laboratories. Maybe he hit a wall and got desperate. I don't believe it. Derek Blackwood has been buying his way through academic journals since freshman year. Derek's face darkened as he heard the murmurs. He hadn't expected the public to be so divided. Dr. Milton silenced the room. Derek, that is a serious accusation. Do you have proof? Proof doesn't matter. Derek said, his voice rising with arrogance. Let Marcus come up here. He claims to have the same technology. Let's compete. The truth will be in the code. He looked at me with wild eyes. Are you man enough to come up here, Marcus? I stood up and walked toward the stage. Emma cupped her hands around her mouth. Go get him, Marcus. Crush him. I reached the podium and looked at Dr. Milton. I accept the challenge, but I want to raise the stakes. I don't want 20 hackers. I want the entire cyber vigilance front to attack my system simultaneously. The room went completely silent. The CVF was a global network of thousands of white hat hackers who tested security systems. Marcus, you have lost your mind. Victoria shouted from the front row. You're going to embarrass the Blackwood name. Withdraw now or you're out of the family for good. You ungrateful son. Richard added. This is a disgrace. The judges whispered among themselves. Are you serious, Marcus? Dr. Milton asked carefully. The CVF could bring down a small country's power grid. If we're testing a shield, let's see if it can withstand a real storm, I replied. Fine. Dr. Milton said. 5 minutes for the CVF to mobilize their forces. I began my setup. Derek sneered at me, giving his family a confident thumbs up. 5 minutes later, the assault began. The CVF didn't hold back anything. Within seconds, Derek's screen began to flicker with problems. My Sentinel system wasn't just a shield. In my last life, it was passive defense only. In this life, I had rebuilt it using black hole logic. It didn't just block attacks. It absorbed the energy of each attack and redirected it back. But before my results could even be calculated, a roar came from Derek's side of the stage. His monitor was filled with scrolling red error text. The Sentinel system had failed completely. It hadn't just failed. It had collapsed into meaningless gibberish. What? No. Derek screamed. I did everything right. I followed the logic perfectly. This shouldn't be happening. He turned to me with a twisted face. You did this. You sabotaged me. I pushed his hand away firmly. Derek, we're on a global stage. Are you accusing me of hacking the most secure server in the country while I was standing right here in front of everyone? I paused. Are you questioning the integrity of the military guards who watched us upload our code? The commanding officer in charge of security glared at Derek. His hand moved to his weapon holster. Look. Someone yelled loudly. The CVF was being destroyed. On my screen, thousands of connection-lost messages were appearing. The shield was counterattacking with devastating effect. It's not just holding. A judge whispered with shock. It's winning. This is impossible. Derek muttered. It's fraud. He's cheating. I turned to him with a voice cold enough for every microphone to catch. Derek, you didn't steal my research. You stole a trap, and now the truth comes out. You're lying. I looked at Dr. Milton. Sir, please have a team examine the hidden layer in Derek's code. Line 400. Do it now, Dr. Milton ordered. A minute later, the giant screen behind us refreshed with new information. A single line of text appeared in bold white letters. My name is Derek Blackwood, and I am a plagiarist. Derek's face went completely white. Victoria looked like she was about to faint. Translate the rest, I said calmly. The screen refreshed again with more hidden strings I'd buried in the dead code he copied. I have a sick secret relationship with my sister Victoria. Richard Blackwood is a corporate thief. Marcus Vance is the true architect of this technology. The room exploded into absolute chaos. The dead code I had used was designed to remain hidden unless the system was under extreme stress. The CVF attack had provided exactly that level of stress. The audience was in complete chaos. Did it say he has a secret relationship with his sister? I heard they were seen together at a hotel in the Hamptons last month. I saw them kissing at the charity gala in the corner. Derek was hyperventilating. He was trying to contact his system, but I knew the signature ring, his medium, was currently being destroyed by the metaphysical feedback I'd set up. Dr. Milton stood up with a grim face. Derek Blackwood, the evidence of plagiarism is undeniable. Security, take him into custody for questioning regarding corporate espionage. No, you can't. Derek screamed as the soldiers moved toward him. I didn't steal it. Our research directions were just similar. Shut your mouth, the colonel snapped, pinning Derek's arms behind his back. You'll have plenty of time to explain everything to federal investigators. Victoria tried to rush forward, but she was blocked by a line of soldiers. She looked toward her parents for help, but she saw the true face of the Blackwoods emerge. What a disgrace! Richard shouted, standing up and pointing at Derek. I can't believe we let this fraud into our home. He's a parasite who used us. Catherine nodded, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Derek, you've broken my heart. I raised you like my own child, and you reward us with this betrayal. I'm so disappointed. Dad. Mom. Victoria looked at them with horror. Be quiet, Victoria. Richard barked. If you hadn't been so enabling of his behavior, we wouldn't be in this mess right now. You're just as much to blame. Victoria, I told you to keep your distance from him. Catherine added, effectively throwing her own daughter under the bus. Look at those rumors spreading. Is it true? Are you that disgusting? I watched the Blackwoods tear each other apart verbally. It was a beautiful sight, but I wasn't finished yet. I stepped to the podium and connected my phone to the main display. Since we're clearing the air completely, I said, let's talk about the rest of the family. The screen filled with documents. Tax evasion records. Evidence of Richard Blackwood hiring hackers to steal trade secrets from competitors. Proof that the Hartley merger was a result of corporate theft. And then the final blow. Evidence that Catherine Blackwood had orchestrated the kidnapping of her own biological son, me, to keep Richard from discovering her affair. She only found me years later when she needed a liver donor for her favorite child, Derek. There were also records of the private investigator she'd hired to eliminate Richard's former mistress permanently. The room was paralyzed with shock. You evil woman! Richard roared, lunging at Catherine. You killed her. Catherine didn't flinch. She clawed at his face violently. You were going to leave me for that waitress. I did what I had to do to protect my inheritance. I hate you, Richard. I've always hated you. I'll kill you right here. The police moved in quickly, dragging them apart. Victoria sat on the floor, staring at a paternity test on the screen that showed she and Derek were actually half-siblings, sharing Catherine as a mother. She clutched her stomach, looking like she was going to vomit. The conference was over. The Blackwood Empire was dead. I was awarded the first-place prize and a permanent seat on the National Technology Council. I was celebrated as a national hero, the exact title Derek had stolen from me in the past. But the Blackwood family's suffering was just beginning. Richard and Catherine were both sentenced to life in prison for multiple crimes, including murder, conspiracy, and corporate corruption. Victoria was sentenced to 15 years for corporate espionage and tax fraud. Between the legal consequences and the mental collapse from learning the truth about Derek, she lost the child she was carrying. I was kind enough to pay for her stay in a high-security psychiatric facility where I made sure the walls were covered with photos of Derek to keep her company. As for Derek, he suffered the most. The day after his arrest, he aged 50 years in a single night. His skin began to rot and his organs started failing. He screamed at the empty air in his hospital room. You can't do this to me. I'm the user. I'm the host. The system had fed on him like a parasite. Without my success to sustain the contract, the void had turned on the only source of energy left. Derek's remaining life force. I visited him one last time. He was barely human anymore, just a husk. A living corpse. He couldn't even speak properly. He just stared at me with watery, terrified eyes as his skin literally fell off his body. He died 3 days later in complete agony. The Blackwood assets were seized by the government. I was allowed to keep a small portion of the legitimate earnings, enough to make me a multimillionaire several times over. Emma and I planned a trip around the world. We were going to see everything before I returned to lead the Sentinel system's implementation across the nation. The night before we left, she turned to me with a curious expression. "Marcus, I had the weirdest dream a few weeks ago. I dreamed you were in prison and everything was burning around us." "How did you know?" I asked carefully. "Know what?" "That the universe gave me a second chance to fix everything." She laughed and shoved me playfully. "Shut up. You and your science fiction stories." I smiled and let her think it was just a story. On a rainy night, as I was out picking up dinner for us, a shadow blocked my path in a dark alleyway. It was an old man with a long white beard, leaning on a wooden cane. He looked at me and grinned widely. "Well, kid," he said with satisfaction. "I didn't lie to you, did I? Your life's tracks have completely shifted." He winked at me mysteriously. "So, are you ready to become my real apprentice this time?"